March is officially over, so it's time for us to go through all of the books we read this month. I think we're both in a little bit of a slump right now, which sucks. I don't know why. I think we were doing really well at the beginning of the year, but something about this month, I don't know.
I'm in a huge slump. I didn't even finish our Literal Besties Book Club book for the month. I'm still working my way through that, and that's the first time I haven't finished one.
I don't know if we were just extra busy this month or what, but regardless, we did still read some pretty great books, so we're just gonna go through everything we read and let you know if we think they're worth reading.
So for the month of March, we had you guys send us over prompts on Instagram. So that was a really fun challenge for us to do this month.
One of my prompts was to read a newly released book, and for that I chose Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. I was actually really excited for this one. It's a reimagining of Carmilla. It did have a lot to do with self-discovery and being a woman in the Victorian era. I did love the gothic atmosphere and tone of the story. However, I do think it was a little bit slower paced than I wanted it to be. I still enjoyed it, but after reading the reviews on this book, I think the original Carmilla story is gonna give me everything that I was missing from this story, because everything I wanted them to touch on a little bit more, I read in the reviews, is like everything they go over in the original. So now that I read this one, I can't wait to read that one. I ended up giving this one a 3.25.
One of the prompts was to read a 5-star prediction, and I actually gave Junie by Erin Crosby Eckstein 5 stars. I knew I would, because this was a historical fiction, but it also had a little paranormal aspect to it. This one is set in 1860 Alabama, and we're following a 16-year-old girl who accidentally awakens her sister's ghost. I was completely invested in Junie's story, and the writing just made me feel everything so deeply. And what made it even better was at the very end in the author's notes, the author explains that these characters are based off of her real ancestors, so it just made it even more impactful. And this story will definitely stay with me for a long time. So a very well-deserved 5-star read. I started the month off very well, so definitely recommend.
Another one of the prompts said to pick a book that has all the letters of the word March. You could include the author, so I chose 6 Months Later by Natalie D. Richards. I had a bunch of books by this author and I had never read them, so this was the perfect time to start her books. I really enjoyed this one. We have a girl who goes to sleep in study hall and wakes up. It's suddenly 6 months later. She remembers nothing of what happened, so she's basically just trying to figure out what's going on. I loved trying to figure out the mystery with our main character. I did enjoy the ending, and overall I just felt like this was a really easy to read, fun mystery thriller. I did end up giving it a 3.5, so I do think it's worth the read. I want to read the other 2 books that I have by her. I love stories like this, and this one didn't disappoint.
So another prompt was to pick a green book, so I went ahead and picked Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. I've said it so many times, but I just feel like Tessa Bailey has been a huge hit or miss for me. I really loved the It Happened One Summer series, and I didn't love Secretly Yours, so I wanted to give this one a chance, and I honestly didn't love it either. I think I gave it a 3-star, but I don't know, I just wasn't like fully invested in it. It was a lot more smutty than I was expecting, but that typically happens with the cartoon covers. I think I will continue the series just because I have the second book, and I probably would like that trope better because it's gonna follow like a single dad and the nanny type of thing, and I always love books like that. But for this one, I don't know, I gave it 3 stars.
For my prompt that said choose a book that reminds you of spring, I chose The Center by Aisha Manazur Siddiqui, and I have mixed feelings about this book. I think the premise was so good. We basically have this girl, she starts dating this guy who seems too perfect. He knows a lot of languages and he's able to pick up new languages really quickly. She is a translator, so she thinks this would be like a great skill to have, so she asks how he does it, and he explains that there's this place called The Center. You can pay a lot of money, you go to for 2 weeks, and you can leave being completely fluent in whatever language you choose. So that part was really interesting. She decides to try it out. She goes there. She doesn't really understand how the program works, and things just aren't exactly what they seem. So we're trying to figure out what exactly The Center is. I thought it was so intriguing. 3/4 of the way in, it kind of just turned into a whole lot of nothing. I don't really know how to explain it, but basically after the big reveal, the plot just kind of disintegrates. I don't know. I did not love the ending. I was waiting for all of this build up to like lead to something crazy. I don't know. I think this would be an interesting movie, but this almost feels like it needs a sequel. The ending for me was the only part I didn't really love. Because of that, I ended up giving it a 3. It was a super fast read though.
Another prompt was the next book in a series, so I picked Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. Here's my issue with this.
Get into it.
I think I read this a little bit too close to Reckless. I kept confusing the 2 plots and all the characters into one book because if I'm being honest, it's kind of the same book. They kind of both left off on the same type of cliffhanger. I don't know. I think it just kept confusing me. I kept having to get out of the story and be like, wait, is this book or the other book? And that's never a good thing. I remember liking our two characters together. I remember also not realizing that this was a duet. So I wasn't expecting it to be the end of the story. I did think that also felt like a little bit rushed and a little too perfect. But that's just me nitpicking. I gave it a 3.5. I had a good time reading it. I think I would have liked it more if I would have read it a little later on from when I read Reckless.
The next prompt I chose was to choose a book that reminds you of horror. So mine was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. Definitely a horror cover if I've ever seen one. There's an eyeball on chopsticks. This is essentially a origin story of a woman who is now a serial killer. I did think this was going to be a 5-star read for me. I don't think it quite lived up to the expectations I set for it in my head, but it still was an interesting read. It was just one of those stories where I personally couldn't connect enough to the characters to really care about things that were going on. I was hoping there was going to be a little bit more of a build-up and more of the horror aspects. I do see what they were trying to do though. I did enjoy it overall. I think I gave it a 3 stars, so it's like right in the middle for me. Like, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it the way I wanted to.
Another one of the prompts was to read a Goodreads winner of 2024, so I read The Wedding People by Allison Espach. This book won the Fiction Award for 2024. We're following a girl who is a recently divorced professor, and she is going to this fancy inn where she's planning on ending her life. But she ends up getting mistaken for a wedding guest, and she gets caught up in all of the celebrations, and she ends up forming all of these bonds with people. And so it has her kind of like second guessing if she's going to make the right decision and what decision she's going to make. I do love when an author can take some serious topics and turn it into something funny and entertaining. So there was definitely a lot of dark humor. I gave this one a 3.5. I do think this one is worth the read though. It's definitely a unique concept.
Another prompt was to choose a book that's been on your TBR the longest. So mine was The Last Time We Say Goodbye by Cynthia Hand. This is a young adult contemporary novel where a girl lost her brother to suicide, so she's just trying to navigate life afterwards. I enjoyed this read. It did not hit me in the feels the way that I thought it was going to. I think I've just read books about this topic that I connected to more. I do appreciate everything that this book goes over. I just don't think it was my favorite. I gave it a 3.25. I am glad that I was finally able to read it though, because it has been on my TBR for so long.
The last prompt that I did was to read a book from a new author to you. So I read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, and it was just as wild as everyone said it was going to be. And I think at times it just kind of bothered me because, you know, age gap is already a trope enough, but then to add on to it with something even crazier than that, it was just kind of a lot. And it just felt so wrong sometimes, but then I was like hooked and reading all about it. I did like that it was something completely different, so I am interested in reading more from Penelope Douglas because I know they have a bunch of books with crazy concepts. I gave this one 3.5. I do think it's worth reading if you're down for all those crazy tropes.
As far as the prompts go, there were 2 that I didn't get to this month, and that was Blood Marked by Tracy Dion, the second book in the Legendborn cycle, which I want to read next month, and the book that reminds you of your childhood, which for me was Eat Only When You're Hungry. I started it, but I think that's when the start of my slump started, so I didn't finish it. I then tried to read Hera, my book of the month pick, and I think I was going into it assuming it was going to read like a Madeline Miller type of Greek mythology retelling, and it wasn't like that. I think I made it maybe 50% through the book, and I realized like it's just not for me right now. I'm gonna try to finish that one later on, but it was a DNF for March. I actually read a couple other books though outside of the prompts, and those I really enjoyed, so I'll quickly go over them. One of them was Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This was a carryover from February, and it was a sci-fi horror thriller type of novel. I loved this book. Maybe go into it mostly blind. All I'll tell you is there is a crew that is collecting data on a planet, and something is going on. It's a huge mystery. I thought this was so good. Not that every book needs an adaptation, but since they're doing it anyway, I would love to see this one on the big screen. I loved the mystery. There's a lot of horror elements. I did not know what was going on the whole time. I read a lot of the reviews and people were complaining about the pacing of the story. I didn't have any issue with it. I thought it was good the whole way through. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so entertaining. Go read it if you haven't yet. My first sci-fi read of the year, I gave it a 4.5, which is like a perfect perfect book in my opinion. And then the other one was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This one I was so excited for because the only other Melissa Albert book I've read, I've really enjoyed as well. This is a young adult fairy tale type of story. It is set in modern day time, but there's like different worlds. This is another one that has a mystery to it. There's creepy characters. There's like a duo that you love. They set out to find our main character's mother. This was a really fun one. I just wish that the ending was a little more drawn out. It felt really rushed in the last third of the book. Everything was kind of happening really quickly, which made it hard to kind of understand. Still really entertaining. I think this is like a series. I don't know that I would continue reading it, but I'm not opposed to it. So this one was a fun one. I do think I liked Our Crooked Hearts more though.
I did end up missing 2 prompts that I was supposed to read. One of them was the oldest book on my TBR, and that was The First Day of Spring. I am so interested in reading that one. And then another one was a book with a number on it. I wanted to read One Dark Window. Again, I still want to read that one. Hopefully I can read both of those next month. I am in the middle of 2 books though. One of the books I'm currently reading is If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. This is the $5 cafe book that they're doing at Barnes & Noble right now. I'm about halfway into it. It's really good so far. It's definitely feeling like a 4.5 star read so far. And I'm also still in the middle of our March book club book, which is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. I really haven't read enough to have like a full opinion yet, so I'll probably just save it for our April wrap up.
I did end up finishing Blue Sisters last month. We basically just have an insight on this grieving family who lost a sister. We're following the 3 remaining sisters and we do a deep dive on their life. We see what each one of them is struggling with. It gets very messy, very real. A super character driven story. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it because I didn't feel super connected. I think I gave it a 3 star, but it was a very moving book. So I'm excited to see your thoughts on it next month.
So that was all of the books that we read in March. Not my best month. I'm hoping April will be a lot better for us. You read a good amount though.
I'm excited to start on my April books though. Our next video will be our April TBR, so keep an eye out for that. For our Literal Besties book club, we are currently trying to figure out what book we're going to read for April, so I will leave that link in the description. Make sure to go over there and vote. But that's pretty much it for today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know what books you guys read in March. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you guys next time. Okay, sorry, just a quick break. Did you read a book? Because I read a book recently and I don't know what it was. The main girl had to go into this house and there were 3 witches. One of them was like blind, one of them was deaf, one of them couldn't speak, and like they wanted to like experience things through her, so she had to like pay them in like a fantasy. What book is that?
What are you talking about?
Someone! What book is that?
Not the 3 monkeys.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's crazy that that's what you, yes.
Another prompt was to read a Goodreads.
Oh, it's one of those days where I feel like the monster on the hill, you know?
No.
Oh.
Not my best month. I'm hoping April will be a lot better for us, quantity and quality wise. Which one do you think is the one that died?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out who was who too.
I feel like this is the boxer.
She's got to be the model, I'd say. Seems like the oldest one. Or either she's the oldest one or she is.
Okay, I would say either one of these are the model. She's probably the model.
Yeah, I think this is Lucky maybe. I don't know.
Actually, this one's giving oldest.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, she looks, I don't know. Let's see.
Then she's the one who died?
Maybe. Unless it's her.
This is just giving boxer. These girls look too soft. Maybe she's the boxer. It doesn't matter.